25 years ago, I told Jackie that if I was murdered, there were two primary suspects the police should start with. One was Pastor Roy Belcher, and the other was Arnold Haag. Now, how it came to pass that Pastor Roy Belcher should be a suspect was on this account. I did indigent criminal defense, and a young lady named Skeeter Smith was appointed to me by the court. She was charged with prostitution, and so I read the police report, and it said that a couple of Pasco City detectives were sitting and keeping an eye on her, and she had a little van, a junkie van, and she would drive it to this major parking lot in Pasco, and then she would pad downtown barefoot, and pretty soon she'd be back with some gentleman, which in this case they had his car and everything. I think it was a white Ford Fairlane, and so she and the gentleman got into her van, and they were in there for a while, and then he got out and drove away, and she went back downtown. So I was reading this, and it looked pretty bad, and so I called up the city attorney, and I said, well, okay, so what's the license plate of that vehicle? Who does it belong to? And the city attorney says, well, what do you need to know that for? And I said, well, first off, these gals involved in prostitution, they've been sexually abused as children, and then somebody's got them pumped full of dope so that they can continue to support their habit. Why the hell are we persecuting her? We ought to be going after the Johns. Second off, you don't know what was going on in that van. He says, well, what do you think they were doing? In there praying? I said, well, maybe that, or laying on of hands. Who knows? I got to chase this down. So he calls back in a little bit, and he says, the vehicle is registered to Pastor Roy Belcher of the Quinault Baptist Church. So I called up Pastor Roy, and I said, I really need to talk to you, and can you come to my office? No, he ain't going to come to my office. So I went to his office. So I had him this big stack of police reports from the detectives, and I'm sitting in his office reading all of these diplomas he's got for Bible colleges and missions he's served in Africa, and you know, he's reading that stuff real slow, and I could hear the walls of his life crumbling in. And pretty soon he says, well, that's not my car. My car's that blue Thunderbird out there, baby robin's egg blue Thunderbird. This is my wife's car. My son was in town that weekend. He was probably using the car. And I said, oh, well, then I need to talk to your son. Can you give me his phone? Well, no, he wouldn't give me the phone number, but he'd have his son call me. So I waited a couple days, and is your son got a hold of me? No. So finally one day I'm standing on the sidewalk, and here comes Pastor Roy driving that white car, not the blue Thunderbird. And I see him driving, he sees me seeing him, and the gig is up. So Skeeter had to go ahead and plead guilty because they had her on something else. So my duties were over with, but I thought, when a person feels like they've got God on their side, he's up there every Sunday pounding the pulpit, and he's just full of the fury of the Lord and the Spirit of God, and on the way, as folks are going out the door, they're pumping his hand and telling him what a man of God he is. When a guy has that kind of twisted perspective and he's involved in prostitution, he might easily decide that it's God's will that he get rid of his wife and he'd drop her off the bridge. So, in my opinion, a man like that is a danger to people around him. Hell, he could have been a danger to me. That's what I told Jackie. So I approached one of the detectives who had written the police report, he had a little dove on his lapel, which indicates, that he's a born-again Christian. And I told him what I was worried about. Would he mind going and checking on the pastor? Was it the pastor or was it his son? And he came back and reported that, oh no, it was the pastor, and that he then approached the deacons, and Pastor Roy was sent down the road. And I'll be damned, he then became the pastor of the Aurora, Colorado Baptist Church. Can you figure that? Okay, now the reason Arnold Haag might want to shoot me in the back of the head was that he was the most crooked character in the Tri-Cities. He didn't pay for nothing. My dad was an electrical inspector for the city of Richland, and he was told by the engineer for the city that if he arrived at one of Arnold's work sites and Arnold had put up wallboard, make him take it down and inspect behind the wallboard. Now, see, it takes a while to get the inspector out to a job site, and so usually if the electrical inspector gets there and they put up wallboard, but he can see the connections to the outlets and etc., the inspector will let that go. But this engineer said, don't do that with Arnold. Arnold will cheat when there's no reason that benefits him. He'll just cheat. So make him take the wallboard down. Well, I got several judgments against Arnold, and I hailed him into court on Law and Motion Day so that I could hold him upside down and shake him till some coins fell out. And part of that order was that his wife had to come too, and they had to bring all of their financial records and income tax records, etc. So he had to be in court at 9. He calls me at 8 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning. He says, "You chicken shit, my wife doesn't know anything. I don't want her coming to court." And I says, "Well, I don't care. She needs to be in court." "Oh, God damn it." And so we go back and forth, and I just insisted, no, she's got to be in court or I will send a bench warrant for her arrest. "You son of a bitch." And so finally he says, "Well, I'll send my flunky over." I knew the flunky's name. "I'll send my flunky over with a check." I said, no, I ain't taking a check from you, Arnold. It's got to be cash. "Where am I going to get cash at 8 o'clock in the morning?" I said, "I don't care. I'll tell you what, I'll give you till 10 o'clock. Have that cash to me by 10 o'clock or I'll get a bench warrant for your wife." So, by God, I got my money. So I always thought, maybe Arnie might want to pop me in the, what was it called, pop a cap? Something like that. Okay. Then there was another contractor. He wasn't crooked. He just was falling on hard times, and he couldn't pay his debts, and I got a judgment against him. So I did the same thing. He had to be in court on Prosser on Thursday, 9 o'clock. Bring all of his records, bring his tax records, and bring his wife, because I'm going to want to talk to her too, garnish her wages if I can. And so he comes into my office, and I'm a chicken shit for doing this to his wife, because it's very embarrassing to a contractor that not only is he not making the money, but now his wife's in trouble legally also. Very embarrassing. But so he's calling me all kinds of names and back and forth. And finally he says, "How'd you like me to come over this desk and just beat the shit out of you?" And I said, "Well, there's no question you could do it. You're a lot bigger than I am, but it wouldn't make any difference. Some other lawyer would just pick up this file and you'd still have to be in court on Thursday, but you'd be in an orange jumpsuit then." So we finally worked something out. I was satisfied. He didn't need to be in court. He didn't need to bring his wife. And so as he's getting up to leave, he says, "You want to collect some debts for me?" So I think I did a pretty good job.